some confusion has been spread about the strength of the Chinese military. Actually, China shows its army as powerful, and we do not think it is as powerful. China's psychological war has failed in front of India. The strength that the Chinese army was showing had no effect. Because no matter how many claims the Chinese army makes, its strength is just an illusion. The first confusion is that the Chinese army is much stronger than India, while the truth is that there are about 14 lakh soldiers in the Indian army. Whereas since 2015, China has been steadily reducing its strength. There are less than 1 million soldiers in China now. One of China's major weaknesses is that from 1979 to 2015, one-child policy was in force in China, because of which most of the soldiers of China are the only children of their parents. In such a situation, it is possible that in the event of war, before the soldiers of China think about their family, and China, on the strength of its soldiers, who threatens to wage war against India, in reality they are not ready to fight with India. The Chinese military itself has admitted that 20% of its soldiers are not fit to fight. 20% of soldiers are also overweight, and 25% of China's soldiers have become addicted to alcohol. That is, even though China can feel its power all over the world, it is only its magic and nothing else. China itself knows these things. He is aware that in the event of war, he may lack troops. Therefore, he also works on a backup plan. Under this, it is mandatory for all citizens in China to provide military services for 2 years. 35% of the soldiers in China's army are those who are brought under compulsory service, that is, they are forced and made into soldiers. Now think how such people can fight any war. In the Chinese army, 50 to 50% of the soldiers from rural and cities are given military training. 90 days of military training is provided to the citizens involved in the army, so that if needed they can be sent to fight in the battlefield. In 2015, a story related to Chinese soldiers is very popular in South Sudan. These Chinese soldiers went to South Sudan as part of the United Nations peacekeeping mission. There he was given the responsibility of safeguarding a refugee camp. But when the rebel groups attacked, Chinese soldiers could neither save the citizens nor protect themselves. Civilians were murdered and raped, but Chinese soldiers were not out of their camps. Rebel groups opened fire on China's camp, in which 2 Chinese soldiers were killed. After this, the Chinese soldiers left their weapons and ammunition, and fled from there. Now in this incident, we tell the difference between the soldiers of China and the soldiers of India. When this attack took place in South Sudan, a contingent of the Indian army was also there, which was kept in reserve. These were the soldiers of the 7th Kumar Own Regiment of the Indian Army, who were called to overcome the situation after the attack. Without fear, the soldiers of India drove the rebels in that area and took that area again. It is said that later the commander of UN mission of South Sudan met the Indian soldiers himself and thanked these soldiers. Defense experts also claim that due to political ideology, the brainwash of soldiers is done by only the Communist Party of China in the world, and for this reason the Chinese army is also called the Communist Party's army. Another major weakness of the Chinese army is that it fought the last war 41 years ago. In 1979, he had to face defeat at the hands of Vietnam. Accordingly, there is hardly any young man or officer in the Chinese army who will have experience of fighting the war. whereas India had defeated Pakistan badly in Kargil War about 21 years ago. The Indian Army also has the experience of entering into the enemy's home to perform surgical strikes and airstrikes. China forcibly recruits youth in army, gets such punishment on refusal. There are about 35% of the youth in the Chinese army who are forced to be made into soldiers. If someone in China refuses to become a soldier, then what does he have to pay? The truth of China is that common citizens are forcibly recruited there. It is mandatory for every citizen to give 2 years of military services. That is, any Chinese youth wants or does not want to be admitted to the army. There are about 35% of the youth in the Chinese army who are forced to be made into soldiers. This is the truth of the Chinese army. China gets 4 to 15 types of punishment for refusing to become a soldier. 1. Public is insulted. 2. Cannot do business for 2 to 3 years. 3. Penalty will be incurred and you have to pay 10 lakh rupees for training. 4. Soldiers do not get any path mix. 5. Cannot study for 2 to 3 years. 6. Never can be an army recruiter again. 7. Answer: cannot get government job throughout life. 8. Loan insurance will not be found. Plan train, bus, cannot go immediately, can't even buy land.